Bonjour, French 2 students. Here is your Lesson 20C teaching video, pages 291 to 293 in your textbook. We're going to begin with a review again. Remember, in this lesson is our final category of regular verb in French, the RE verb. So to conjugate a regular RE verb, you start with your infinitive, you remove the RE, which gives you your stem, and then to your stem you add. And again, for je, you add an S. For tu, you add an S. You don't add anything for the il, elle, or on. And remember, this is a new subject pronoun that means one, we, they, means a lot of different things. We use it for general statements. For nous, we add ONS. For vous, we add EZ, and for il and elle pluriel, we add ENT. So to take a look at an example, we're going to look at entendre, which means to hear. And again, here's my stem. That stem's going to be in all 6 forms of my verb. So here's the stem, and I add an S for je. Here's my stem. I add an S for tu. Here's my stem, and I don't add anything for il or elle or on. For nous, here's my stem, and I add ONS. For vous, here's my stem. I add an EZ. And for il and elle pluriel, here's my stem, and we add an ENT. S'il vous plaît, répétez entendre. J'entends, tu entends, on entend, nous attendons, vous attendez, elles entendent. So, some new material is the imperative. That's what we'll be looking at in our textbook in just a couple minutes. The imperative is used to make suggestions, give orders, offer advice. So we actually also use the imperative quite a bit in English, okay? And so this is commonly used in both French and English. For example, when you say go to bed or don't forget to study, those are you using the imperative in English. There are 3 forms of the imperative in French, depending on who you're talking to. There is a to form. Right? You're going to use the to form when you're talking to one person, your own age, or younger. Okay? So that's the to form. There is the vous form. And this, just like vous typically has, right, 2 different kinds of uses. There's 2 different kinds of uses for vous as well, right? I can use this with one person who's an adult, and I'm being polite. This is also the plural form. So, for example, when I say répétez, s'il vous plaît, I'm using the imperative, the vous form, because I'm talking to all of you, the entire class. The 3rd form of the imperative is the nous form. And here again, you're talking to 2 or more people, but you're including yourself. In English, we often start these with let's. So, let's go to the movies. That would be an imperative form. So these are the 3 forms of the imperative. So we'll kind of take a look at some verb forms. For the most part, you conjugate the verbs just like you would for tu, vous, or nous. The only exception to that being for ER verbs, for tu, you're going to drop, you're going to drop the S. So if we take a look at the verb manger, to eat, okay, so the tu form of the imperative for manger would be M-A-N-G, and it would just end in an E. It wouldn't have its ES because we dropped that S. For vous, it'd be M-A-N-G-E-Z. And for nous, it'd be M-A-N-G-E-O-N-S. So that's a regular ER verb. A regular IR verb, let's do choisir, to choose. So the tu form would be choisi. Here's my stem. Here's my extra IS that I add. For vous, CHOIS, and then I add my ISSEZ. And for nous, CHOIS, ISSONS. Okay, so there's an example of an IR verb. So we have choisi, choisissez, choisissons. Okay. A regular RE verb, one of our new verbs we've learned. How about if we use attendre, to wait? Okay, so this is going to be attend, ending in its S. Attendez, ending in its EZ. Attendons, for the new form. The last verb that we actually use this with quite a bit is aller, which means to go. And because aller looks as though it's an ER verb, it kind of does the same kind of thing. So this little kind of star here, remember this happened here. It's also going to happen here, even though technically aller is not an ER verb, but it's going to be VA instead of VAS, like you would expect for the tu form. For vous, it's aller. And for nous, allons. Okay, so again, these are these imperative forms, right? So we would be saying with manger, eat. We'd probably be telling people to eat something, right? Okay, so eat, eat, and eat. Choose, choose, choose. Wait, wait, wait. Go, go, go. Okay? Which form we use depends on who are we talking to. Are we talking to one person our own age or younger? Then we're going to use, right, that tu form. Are we talking to an adult, or are we talking to a group of people? Then we're going to use that vous form. And if we are including ourselves in something and talking to a group, then we would use that nous form. So the form that we use depends on who we're talking to, but notice in all of these there are no subjects or subject pronouns in the sentences. Okay, so let's take a look at this the way it's presented to you in your textbook. S'il vous plaît, ouvrez vos livres à la page 291. C'est l'impératif, the learning about language. The imperative is used to make suggestions and to give orders and advice. The commands or suggestions may be affirmative or negative. Compare the French and English forms of the imperative. Écoute ce CD. Ne vendez pas votre voiture. Allons au cinéma. Note the forms of the imperative in the chart below. So, again, we see a regular ER verb. We see a regular IR verb here, we see a regular RE verb, and then we see the irregular verb aller. Okay. So again, notice that normally the to form of the imperative for a regular ER verb would end in an ES, but there's no S on it in the imperative. So we have parle, parler, parlons, fini, finissez, finissons, vont, vendez, vendons, va, aller, allons. And that same thing is true here with the va. Typically, the to form of va would end in an S as well, and it is dropped in the imperative forms. For regular verbs and most irregular verbs, the forms of the imperative are the same as the corresponding forms of the present tense. Note, for all ER verbs, including aller, the S on the to form is dropped. Compare tu parles anglais, parle français s'il te plaît, tu vas au café, va à la bibliothèque. So you speak French please. You go to the cafe, go to the library. So again, the point here is that those S's are gone. Okay, there's no S on ER verbs in the imperative. Okay. The negative imperative is formed as follows: ne veux pas, so ne choisis pas ce blouson, don't choose this jacket. So again, we just are putting our ne and our pas around a verb. Remember, this ne is going to become an apostrophe before a vowel or a silent H. So take a look at exercice 13, l'ange et le démon. Veronique is wondering whether she should do certain things. The angel gives her good advice. The devil gives her bad advice. Play both roles. So étudier les verbes, study the verbs. So étudier les verbes and n'étudie pas les verbes. Remember, étudier normally would be to étudie. But because this is the imperative, we drop that S. And again, notice there's no subject pronoun in our sentence either. So, numéro 1, téléphoner à ta tante. I'd like you to say these out loud. Téléphone à ta tante. Ne téléphone pas à ta tante. 2. Attendre tes copains. Attends tes copains, n'attends pas tes copains. 3. Faire attention en classe. Fais attention en classe, ne fais pas attention en classe. 4. Aller à l'école. Va à l'école, ne va pas à l'école. 5. Finir la leçon. Finis la leçon, ne finis pas la leçon. 6. Écouter tes professeurs. Écoute tes professeurs, n'écoute pas tes professeurs. 7. Mettre la table. Mets la table, ne mets pas la table. 8. Aider tes amis. Aide tes amis, n'aide pas tes amis. 9. Rendre visite à ta grand-mère. Rendre visite à ta grand-mère, ne rends pas visite à ta grand-mère. 10. Choisir des copains sympathiques. Choisis des copains sympathiques, ne choisis pas des copains sympathiques. 11. Faire tes devoirs. fais tes devoirs, ne fais pas tes devoirs. 12. Réussir à l'examen. Réussissent à l'examen, ne réussis pas à l'examen. Exercice 14. Oui ou non. For each of the following situations, give your classmates advice as to what to do and what not to do. Be logical. So, nous sommes en vacances. So, if we are on vacation, are we going to study? Are we going to travel? So, we're going to say, n'étudiez pas and voyagez. Here, we're using the vous form because we're talking to all of your classmates. So, it's plural here. For each of these, one will be affirmative and one will be negative. So you want to make sure you're giving good advice. So, number 1, nous sommes à Paris, parlez anglais and parlez français. Ne parlez pas anglais, parlez français. 2, c'est dimanche, aller à la bibliothèque, aller au cinéma. N'allez pas à la bibliothèque, allez au cinéma. 3. Il fait beau. Restez à la maison, faire une promenade. Ne restez pas à la maison, faites une promenade. Numéro 4. Il fait froid. Mettre en pull, mettre en t-shirt. Mettez en pull, ne mettez pas de t-shirt. Numéro 5. Il est 11 heures du soir. Restez au café, rentrez à la maison. Ne restez pas au café, rentrez à la maison. 6. Il fait très chaud. Aller à la piscine, regardez la télé. Allez à la piscine, ne regardez pas la télé. Right, the pronunciation, les lettres A-N, A-E-N. The letters A-N and E-N represent the nasal vowel. Be sure not to pronounce the sound N after the vowel. S'il vous plaît, répétez enfant, en, manteau, colon, grand, élégant, André mange, un grand sandwich, enfant, en, argent, dépenser, attend, entend, vend, envie. Vincent dépense rarement son argent. Alright, homework number 32 is on page 291, exercise 11, and page 292, exercise 14. On page 291, exercise 11, you're supposed to say what the following people do by completing each sentence with the appropriate form of one of the verbs from the list. Be logical. Remember, be logical here. Remember, this is a two-part. Sorry about that. Let's start that again. So, exercise 11. Right? This is a two-part exercise. There are two things you have to do. Number 1, which verb goes in which sentence? Based on what it means. And then the second step is you need to conjugate that verb. So, for example, number 1, Guillaume est patient, il blank ses amis. So, Guillaume is patient. So, what is he doing for his friends? He's going to be waiting. So, attendre is the verb I'm going to use. And il attend, I have to conjugate it. So, what I'd like you to write on your paper is sort of what's right before your blank and what you put in the blank. You do not have to write the whole sentence. Okay, so that's exercise 11. Exercise 14, we just did this one out loud, right? For this one, you're going to have one affirmative and one negative form of the imperative. You're talking to a group of people, so it's always going to be the vous form of the imperative, and they have to make sense. You have to give good advice. So number 1 was nous sommes à Paris. So if you're in Paris, we're going to say ne parlez pas anglais. Okay. Parlez français. Okay, so you're going to write those 2 sentences for each of these. Au revoir, à demain.